Tonight, Idris Elba's return to the DCU. Is I Am Groot in the MCU? The original Enterprise returned to display. Andor used no volume, plus an interview with actor-director Bo Roberts. All that and more on this edition of Multiverse Tonight. Comic books, sci-fi, fantasy, and more. If you're looking for a roundup of geeky news, you're in the right place. This is Multiverse Tonight. And here's your host, Thomas Townley. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 170. Very special episode because we're in our brand new home studio. I don't know if you heard that. That was some applause. Yeah, we finally got me into this home studio that we've put together. Got my desk here in front of the windows. Got all my autographs, or not all my autographs. Like 80% of my autographs right now are up on the wall. I have another 25, I think, still to hang up. I have all my DVDs, all my CDs. It's also my dressing room as well. And so it's still a work in progress, of course. Nothing is ever built in a day, but it's coming along. If you'd like to see more about it, go to our Facebook, go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I've been posting updates on there, so head on over there, take a look at it. But we have a lot to cover. We have quite a bit to cover today, so let's go on to the DC Comics news. And we begin DC Comics news with Idris Elba promising a return to the DC universe. The actor who played Bloodsport in the Suicide Squad told Eric Davis in an interview that he's, quote, got a real big thing cooking for DC right now, unquote. Okay, so what that'll be and if it'll survive the Discovery Purge is still up in the air, I think he did excellent as Bloodsport. I would like to see what else he can do in the DC universe. But again, it's all up in the air right now. And speaking of up in the air, the Ezra Miller weirdo news cavalcade keeps rolling on. The actor has now been charged with felony burglary into an unoccupied dwelling, according to TMZ, allegedly over the theft of several bottles of alcohol from a home in Vermont. The report states that Miller was charged after Vermont State Police reviewed surveillance videos and statements pertaining to the burglary, with Miller being located on Sunday night and ordered to appear in court for arraignment in September. Why no word from Warner Bros. Discovery about how this will affect the Flash movie release, or if they'll still take this as a loss too. If I had my guess is they will take the loss on this. Either that or just put it on HBO Max and bury it. And after this, just cut ties with Ezra Miller. That man has lost them so much money. J.J. Abrams' Constantine series still has a pulse. According to a report from Deadline, Constantine is one of the few projects for HBO Max that is on a solid ground and still moving along. Now, there weren't any additional details provided either about what moving along entails or about the series itself, but it feels like a bit of good news in the wake of what has been a roller coaster of things. Kevin Smith will have to go back to mundane adventures as the DC anthology series Strange Adventures has been axed by Warner Discovery in their further efforts to find things seen to be unworthy. The news was broken on Kevin Smith's Hollywood Babylon podcast, and the actor said that he would see their point that it would have been expensive, saying, quote, dropping Strange Adventures kind of makes sense to me. Nobody necessarily knows these characters, and it sounded like an expensive show, unquote. Multiverse's developer, Player First Games, and Warner Brothers Games have announced that Multiverse's Season 1 will go ahead and actually launch on August 15th. The free-to-play platform brawler was initially set to release on August 9th, alongside the addition of Morty from Rick and Morty as the new playable character. However, the two releases now are separated, as Morty will actually be joining Multiverses on August 23rd as part of Season 1, but not directly at launch. In a statement, they said, quote, we're excited to announce Season 1 will begin on August 15th with a brand new battle pass for you to earn in-game rewards. We also confirmed Morty will join the character roster on August 23rd as part of Season 1. We are looking forward to sharing more in the coming weeks, unquote. As noted, Multiverse Season 1 is set to kick off on August 15th with that battle pass with in-game rewards. And Morty will join the cast on August 23rd. And in general, Multiverses is currently available in open beta on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, S, 1, and PC. The video game is a free-to-play platform brawler with a focus on 2-on-2 team fights. The title includes free full cross-play support as well as server-based rollback netcode. DC has announced a second arc for its Poison Ivy solo series. Poison Ivy's crusade as an environmentalist continues in a new 6-issue story arc from writer G. Willow Wilson and artist Mariko Takara, thanks to the overwhelming fan support and demand and support for the book. The new arc of Poison Ivy will see her quest to undo the wrongs of man and return the earth to the green, whatever the cost. Now, let's go on to the Marvel Comics news. We begin Marvel news today with I Am Groot, which is in the MCU according to Marvel Studios animation head Brad Witterbaum. The 5 short movies are out now on Disney Plus this month, and he states that they come after Guardians 2, saying, quote, it's a narrow window, right? It takes place between the end of Guardians 2 and before the tag scene in Guardians 2, so it's that narrow window where Groot is in that kind of post-toddler stage of development. And it was something really exciting. James also knew Christian Leopold's work and was excited about working with her as well, unquote. And they are cute. You know, sit down, watch them. Each one is about 5 minutes, and with about 5 minutes of credits on the back side of it, but those don't really matter. But I welcome people to go see those. Take-Two Interactive has announced another delay for Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is the upcoming strategy game from developer Firaxis Games. Originally slated to launch in March of 2022, 2K Games and Firaxis announced late last year that it instead would be arriving until a bit later. And while a launch date was previously scheduled for October 7th, we now know when Midnight Suns will be releasing. So, March 2022. Oh, I guess if it's good, people can wait for it. Marvel Comics has announced a new Deadpool series starring the Merc with the Mouth, Wade Wilson. The new era for Deadpool begins in November with Deadpool #1, kicking off a new ongoing series from Alyssa Wong, known for her work on Dr. Aphra and Iron Fist, and artist Martin Coccolo, who is currently drawing the Hulk vs. Thor Banner of War crossover, promising, quote, riotous violence and relentless body horror, unquote. Now, Deadpool's new solo series, the first since the previous Deadpool volume wrapped in January of 2021, begins with a new group of mercenaries sending Deadpool on one of his most dangerous missions, complete with an intoxicating villain unleashing a plan that has the side effect on Wade's body. Also, a new love interest emerges. Here's the synopsis. The world knows Wade Wilson is one of the top mercenaries / assassins in the Marvel Universe, even if he is simultaneously the most annoying one. But he's pushing to make that recognition official as he auditions for the elite group known as the Atelier. Now, he has 48 hours to kill one of the world's most famous supervillains. Only problem, he's been kidnapped and something strange is growing inside him. Unquote. Deadpool #1 comes goes on sale on November the 2nd. Now, let's go to the Star Trek news. The original 11-foot model of the USS Enterprise is going back on display at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum this October. The model, which was donated by Paramount back in 1974, was put into a conservation project back in 2016 and taken completely off display since 2019 as part of the museum's renovation. According to a spokesperson for the museum, the filming model display will be available to the public starting on October 14th as part of the Boeing Milestones of Flight Hall. According to the museum, the model will be in the south lobby and will be displayed very similarly to what was before, including the same case. The model is still in good condition and does not need any additional work. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is Paramount Plus' biggest Star Trek debut yet, according to the streaming service. On Wednesday, Paramount Plus announced that Strange New Worlds had the best streaming debut for a Star Trek original series ever, breaking the record for most watched original series in the franchise in the first 90 days. Now, Strange New Worlds also ranks as one of the top 2 most watched original series on Paramount Plus in the UK, and it still reigns as the highest rated series ever on Rotten Tomatoes. Star Trek Strange New Worlds has already shot its second season. Now, let's go to that sweet, sweet Star Wars news. And we begin Star Wars news with Rogue One, which was done without the technological marvel called the Volume, the state-of-the-art wraparound video wall that's used to put actors in virtual locations. Speaking at the Television Critics Association press tour, Andor creator Tony Gilroy explained, quote, "Nobody's against the volume. The volume is fantastic for the things that it's for. But Andor is just on a massively epic scale, and people would be running off the set all the time." Unquote. Now, he also continued on, quote, "Believe me, there are things we wish we could have done on the volume that might have been simpler, but our show's wide, it's huge, we have 211 speaking parts. I think that if we have this conversation at the end of the show, it will be different because the width and breadth and visual ambition and traveling ambition of the show is huge. It just doesn't lend itself to that kind of production," unquote. So in other words, Andor is bigger than the volume. Star Wars Ahsoka is currently in production, and according to Star Wars Zara Dawson, there's at least one episode of the show that's been fully cut together and completed. And according to Dawson, showrunner Dave Filoni's first viewing of that Ahsoka episode was nothing short of a religious experience. While appearing at the panel for C2E2's convention in Chicago, Dawson said the following about where things currently stand with Star Wars Ahsoka. Quote, "So I will say this. I will probably get in trouble for saying this, but Dave saw one of the episodes already edited together, and he walked out, he and Carrie Beck looked like both glossy-eyed and said to me that was a religious experience," unquote. Now let's go to that interview with actor director Bo Roberts. Well, hello everyone. It's interview time here on Multiverse Tonight, and today we have probably the handsomest man I've ever interviewed. He is a model turned actor turned director, Bo Roberts. Hi, Bo.
Hey, Thomas. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, Bo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
See, about myself. I'm from the Midwest in Indiana, and I had a career in law enforcement that bled over into cage fighting, worked at a family truck driving company for some years, and then just kind of up and moved down to Florida. And once I got to Florida, that's when modeling, came into my life. And then from that, I began seeing some castings for acting. And at the time, being in Indiana, I always thought, it'd be cool to, try out acting, this and that. But I'm pretty sure every kid in the Midwest, probably thinks at some point, but now I'm actually being exposed to it. So I began testing the waters and fell in love with the entire process, just being on set in general. And then moved to New York City to go to acting school, eventually out to Los Angeles. But while I was still in acting school, I began shooting a bunch of short films and just hanging out with people from acting school, and yeah, just 5 minutes up to 20 minutes short films. But everyone I would shoot had a specific meaning on, like, let's work on lighting on this one,
Mm.
this and that. And that's when I really began making sense that the more time I spend behind the camera, the more I enjoy it.
So, how did like cage fighting and law enforcement kind of influence how you were later on?
Oh, so cage fighting and law enforcement, how it influenced
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
I would say just not too much of a perspective shift, but it just kind of reinforced some things. Prime example is I'm actually scarred for life right here after trying to handcuff a guy that was drunk, and that was it. He only had alcohol in his system, and he's just one of hundreds. I would have to get hands on with drunk
Mm.
people. I would say 4 to 10 times per week, and that's an easy average to come up with. But every person that walked through the door that only had marijuana in their
Mm-hmm.
system, like if the police caught them, they had a joint on them. They would walk in and say, "Hey, you caught me. What's next? Are we taking pictures?" Or like they just everybody was super calm, very chill. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, and growing up in a very conservative minded part of the country,
Mm-hmm.
it put in my brain like, yeah, why is alcohol legal and I'm literally fighting people on a
Yeah.
nightly basis? But anybody that comes in with weed, that's the big evil drug.
Mm-hmm.
But I never had one bad incident with anybody in that situation. So, that was something I thought that was pretty peculiar.
All right, and tell us about this new short film you have here, The Great Awakening.
Yeah. So it's not too short. It's actually over 1 hour long,
Oh, cool.
and yeah, and it was an this is my COVID movie. Back in 2020 and 2021, so last year, a lot of people were just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff together and just to put a movie out for the sake of it. And for me, I was like, okay, let's do a COVID movie. And my wife loved the idea, but she said, don't make it about COVID because that's what everybody else is going to be doing. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to make a movie about COVID, and but with my twist on it,
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped to the pretty easy conclusion that a lot of people are going to make movies about contracting the virus, or maybe the virus mutates you into a monster, or that
Mm-hmm.
lockdown could be mass enslavement of the human race, and just go down whatever tube you want, but it has to be very directly linked to COVID. For me, there is a documentary that I watched that changed my entire perspective on filmmaking. It's called Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue. And this documentary has like George A. Romero, Wes Craven, and like you name it, the who's who of the horror genre. All of these people are on screen talking about the way that they made sense of society, the world, kind of the overall sentiment that was in the ether. It's just you just have this feeling that a lot of people have. So they put that into their work. The best example is like in the 50s, you had a lot of apocalyptic atomic bomb movies because World War II just ended. And then you fast forward to the 60s and you have the Summer of Love, drug
Mm-hmm.
experimentation, and so on and so forth. So a lot of horror movies were about the drug fueled tweaker kidnapping daddy's little angel,
Yeah.
and oh, that's a horror movie. And then you get to the 70s, and that's when the Summer of Love ended, and the country has kind of a bad taste in its mouth from that. But then we also have Watergate and Vietnam.
Hmm.
So horror movies took on an ultra violent um, shape during the 70s. And that's when you have movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre come out and a lot of stuff that's just, full throttle on violence. So for me, my COVID movie was sitting around making sense of, okay, what is it? Sorry about that. Somebody set off a firework.
Oh,
um, yeah,
interesting.
awesome. But yeah, so for me, 2020 is like, okay, what does that mean to me? COVID is introduced, lockdown. That idea is put on the news, and now lockdown is soon going to be implemented all over the world. Murder hornets were on the news for some reason,
Oh, yeah, I
um,
remember those.
talking about that, and then they just kind of faded away. The CIA released over 10,000 documents confirming interactions with UFOs.
Hmm.
We had a very turbulent election year. Just 2020 was a mixed bag in a lot of different ways.
Yes,
So for
yes.
me to summarize that year, I would say a one word response would be uncertainty. So uncertainty is what I pulled to use as my COVID movie.
Hmm.
So the way the story is told, um, the way it's executed, polished and posed, put together, everything is very intentional to make the viewer like understand what's happening, but not really understand why things are happening in the way that they are. So you know, uh, great example would be the movie opens on the lead actress, and she's having a staring contest with her neighbor, and then it kind of cuts away, and you see that she's wearing this beautiful ball gown, dangling earrings, diamond necklace, just all done up, but she's holding a bag of garbage, and and then she stops staring at her neighbor and she puts the garbage away and walks upstairs. So it's just, that is the story of somebody taking out the garbage. But uncertainty comes in when you're like, why does she have the ball gown on? What's up with the weird staring contest and so on and so forth. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, so back to it. So much of the movie is very deliberate and making the viewer feel uncertain because that's how I felt all throughout 2020.
Oh, yeah. So, what do you like about making this movie?
What I what I loved about making this movie actually was just the total amount of creative freedom that I had with it. I or just about the complete creative freedom. Start off by lying online and trying to come across more big budget and say that I had like $2,600, but in reality, um, I made this movie for $1,600.
Hmm.
Um, so that does put a particular ceiling, but for me, it was like this is my story wherever I want it to go, that's where it's going to go. So that's what I really enjoyed about it, because I do anticipate as I scale up in work, that's when who knows maybe this executive producer is going to finance 75% of
Hmm.
multi-million-dollar movie, but his niece is going to have to share screen time with some big actor. So some compromises and uh, negotiations are going to have to come into play. But on the Great Awakening, I didn't have to do that. It was exactly me doing my
Hmm.
thing and just creating. So, yeah.
Yep. That sounds great. I mean, I when I think of self-funded movies, I think of Kevin Smith and Clerks.
Hmm.
He did that all on his credit cards.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're right up there with that. Now, I read that you were bullied in grade school, and that
Hmm.
how'd that affect your life?
Um, I, I think it allowed me to be a lot more compassionate and kind of like now, I consider myself to be a bully of the bullies. Um, like tragically, I think this country's lost the ability to agree to disagree. But for me, if somebody has a different opinion, that's fine. but once they began getting overbearing on other people in a bully sense, that's when it's very hard for me to bite my tongue if I have nothing to do with that situation. And of course, it's like if it's just an online argument or what have you, I stay away from it. But yeah, so from kindergarten until 2 years after high school, I actually went
Mm,
through intensive speech therapy. R's, S's, had a stutter, just a lot that needed work.
mm,
So for me, it was an interesting situation because I graduated like senior year of high school. I was captain of football, wrestling, track, baseball, volleyball manager, mascot at basketball games, middle school wrestling coach, and a youth baseball coach. So I was hyper active and always like captain of the team. So after a big win, um, and people were talking about an after party, like I wasn't in that in group, and yeah, it was to me it's interesting because in the Midwest, it definitely does seem like
yeah.
if you're different, you're not celebrated. It's more like, oh, he's different. There's something wrong with him. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the mentality I had all throughout school.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely carry that with me. But then it came down to a career choice. I could have went into the family truck driving business and locked myself in the office and typed on the computer and not have to interact with people. And that would be a way to kind of compensate for my speech impediment.
Mm-hmm.
But what I chose to do is go work as an actor where the camera's, 3 feet away from my face, have a, and I have a microphone right here, and
Okay.
everybody is listening to exactly what I have to say. So it was more of a mentality of jumping into the fire rather than avoiding it.
Well, that's great. As someone who was bullied in school, that's always great to hear. Um, so if someone came to the door and offered you any role, what role would you most like to have?
Oh, what kind of a role would
Yeah.
I like to have? I do have a couple roles that I've written for myself. I've come up with about 15 feature film scripts,
Mm,
and I do have a couple of them that are written specifically for me. And yeah, one of them is a goofy comedy. I love Mel Brooks, Monty Python, and
ooh,
like proper slapstick humor to where
yeah.
it's if it's done correctly, I'm a big
Mm,
fan of it.
mm-hmm.
Whereas there's a channel I follow on YouTube that's wonderful. It's called Every Frame a Painting, and it broke down the difference between was it a joke and a gag, to where a joke is like a lot of modern day comedy where they just put like a stand up comedian or like maybe Will Ferrell. He stands on the
Mm-hmm.
mark and they have a frame and a structure of what the scene is. But yeah, when they hit roll, it's just a funny guy saying funny things and hopefully a joke lands. So it seems like that's a lot of new comedy, whereas a gag, you would have a writer come up with the idea,
Mm-hmm.
the director envision it, talent carries it out. You would have props involved, polished and post. Like it's a complete collaborative effort to make this one comical thing on screen happen. So for me, if somebody comes up and tells me they're doing something that has more of that kind of collaborative uh, you know mentality behind it, that's what would get my attention more so than something that's just kind of a bit more watered down. So with that being said, it could be a comedy, it could be a horror movie. Just to me, it needs something that's gonna kind of grab my attention.
That's great. Now, this is part of the interview I like. I have a deck of interview cards here, random questions. So let's find something interesting. When you wake up in the morning, what is your number one priority?
When I first wake up in the
Yeah.
morning, my number one priority is I send a the kissing emoji text to my wife.
Oh.
and so she's easily up maybe 2 hours before I am. So she will bring me coffee in bed, and then that's when Nogi and Waffle will jump up on the bed and greet me as well. What are you, jump up. What are you doing? And right on cue, here is Waffle. But yeah, so to me, that's my favorite thing ever is just sending her the text. She comes in and I ask how her morning's going. She asks how I slept, and then we have these very cute and cuddly 100-pound animals that will
Uh,
just sprint onto the bed and just kind of snuggle with me for about 10 minutes.
well, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How about what's the main thing on your bucket list?
Ooh, the main thing on my bucket list. That's interesting. I don't have too many bucket list items. In a very comical way, I've had this notion to where it would just be fun to get into a bar fight in Ireland and kicked out of an Irish pub for fighting. To me, it's just it's very goofy, but yeah, it seems like it would be done with a lot of fun humor. Um, but other than that, like I don't have too many legitimate bucket list items because back to me choosing to go into acting um, instead of hiding my speech impediment inside of an office somewhere. Like if I want to do something, I just go out and do it.
All right, let's go on this one. Whom do you secretly envy?
I honestly don't think I can answer that. Somebody I envy. I view everybody as having a very unique path in life, and everybody's coming from drastically different circumstances. So to go from like zero to hero, or to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth and to still be on top, or to be doing great things, I don't know. I'm very content and happy, with where my story is and where it's going.
Oh, that's very refreshing. So, tell us where people can find the Great Awakening.
So the Great Awakening is currently on Tubi TV. It is a streaming platform that is free to download and free to watch. You do have some commercials, but
Mhm.
yeah, that would definitely be the best place to check it out. And then you also have Luku, and as well as a few other that I believe they're currently onboarding. But yeah, Tubi's the place to go for now.
All right. And is there any social media people can find you on?
Yeah, so just type in my name, but put Mister in front of it. So MRBO. Um, there it is. Yeah. Thank you for that. So yeah, and if you just type that in, that's synonymous across platforms: Twitter, Instagram, um, my YouTube channel. It's all the same thing.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Bo Roberts, thank you very much for having me. And
And of course,
of course, you can find all our shows over at multiversetonight.com. And now back to me in the same chair in a different day. Thank you very much.
awesome. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. And now the geek news. That was a good interview. Um, I think oh that was good. So we begin geek news today with a live-action Pac-Man uh, show in the works. The Hollywood Reporter reports that Bandai Namco, the company behind Pac-Man and Wayfarer Studios, will make a film based on the character originally named Puck-Man in Japan that was a staple of arcades back in the 80s. And boy, was he ever, trust me. The project will be based on an original idea from Chuck Williams of Lightbeam Entertainment, who did the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Baladani, Gargi, and Andrew Keloff will be producing on behalf of Wayfarer Studios. Williams and Tom Kwok will produce on behalf of Lightbeam. Now, how do you make a live action Pac Man? Didn't they kind of try that in the in that one movie that have kind of a live action Pac-Man. Anyway, HBO has greenlit a plot, excuse me, a pilot for the franchise, a half-hour comedy about making superhero movies. The pilot comes from Veep and Avenue 5 creator Armando Iannucci and former James Bond director Sam Mendes. The premise for the plot says, quote, "It follows a hopeful crew trapped inside the dysfunctional and nonsensical joyous hellscape of franchise superhero movie making. If and when they finally make the day, the question they must face is this Hollywood's new dawn or cinema's last stand? Is this a dream factory or a chemical plant?" Unquote. Iannucci will be executive producing the series with his Dundee Productions banner, and Mendez will be executive producing for Neil Street Productions. Disney Plus's ad support version will run you $7.99 a month. The new tier was announced this past Wednesday in the Walt Disney Company's third quarter earnings call. The new tier will start on December 8th. In turn, the cost for the premium ad-free tier is rising $3 to $10.99 a month. Hulu is also raising prices with its ad-free tier increasing $1 to $7.99 a month, and its ad-free tier hiking costs by $2 to $14.99 a month. Now, this way, ad-free Disney Plus subscribers can't cancel for a cheaper alternative. Now, this marks the most significant Disney Plus price increase since it launched back in November of 2019. The company previously raised the streamer's price by $1 back in March of 2021. However, the Disney Bundle, which includes ad-free tiers of Disney Plus and Hulu, as well as ESPN Plus, will remain $19.99. Disney will also be rolling out new bundle plans. The first is an ad-supported combination of Disney Plus and Hulu for $9.99 a month, and the second is an ad-supported collection of all three services for $12.99 a month. The new heads of Warner Brothers Pictures have hammered out a multi-year deal to handle international distribution of MGM's theatrical titles. The deal, which DeLuca and Abda worked out with MGM COO Christopher Brereton, will deliver a great deal of incremental revenue to Warner Brothers. Now, we're hearing that the terms are for 3 years with an option for 2, and encompass the theatrical distribution of MGM titles outside the U.S., including China. The new agreement, which includes worldwide physical home entertainment distribution on all new released MGM titles, MGM and Warner Brothers Picture Groups will team on marketing, advertising, publicity, film distribution, and exhibitor relations on behalf of MGM's future slate of theatrical releases outside the North American theatrical market, with Warner Brothers responsible for execution. That was a mouthful. Saturn Award nominations have been announced. This year's ceremony marks the 50th annual Saturn Awards, which celebrate excellence in science fiction, fantasy, and horror films. The Batman was the overall top nominee, with 12 different nominations, including writing, directing, acting, music, editing, and more. Now, voting will begin on August 15th, and if you want to have your say, the Saturn Awards is an open organization and allows fans to pay $40 to vote to become an affiliate member and help determine the outcome of the awards. With several hundred members in Los Angeles, the Academy holds official screenings of films for the purposes of award consideration. As I said, here are some of the nominees. Superhero film, you have The Batman, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings, Spider-Man No Way Home, The Suicide Squad, Thor Love and Thunder. In the science fiction film category, you have Crimes of the Future, Dune, Free Guy, Godzilla vs. Kong, Jurassic World Domination, Nope. In your actor in a film, you have Timothée Chalamet for Doom, Tom Cruise for Top Gun Maverick, Idris Elba for Suicide Squad, Tom Holland for Spider-Man No Way Home, Daniel Kaluuya for Nope, Simu Liu for Shang-Chi and Legend of Ten Rings, Robert Pattinson for The Batman, and there are, again, dozens of categories. It would take a long time. It would take probably as long as that interview for me to mention all of them. Let's mention some of the television award nominees, though. Science fiction television series, network or cable. The nominees are The Flash, The Man Who Fell to Earth, Supergirl, Superman Lois, Resident Alien, and Westworld. The actress in a network or cable series We have Citrona Belf for Outlander, Kylie Boonberry for Big Sky, Courtney Cox for Shining Veil, Melanie Lysinski for Yellow Jackets, Rose McIver for Ghosts, Rhea Shehorn for Better Call Saul, and Elizabeth Tulloch for Superman and Lois. They also gave out awards for streaming services, animated, fantasy series, horror thriller, limited event series, actors in streaming series. I mean, you can check out the entire list. Oh, also DVD and video releases too. They have a huge list of award nominations. Again, head on over to multiversetonight.com or check out the show notes wherever you can find them and peruse this list. Now, there was another set of awards given out this past weekend. That was the Hollywood Critics Association Award winners. Now, I'll only go over the genre award winners. Best Broadcast Network Reality Show or Competition Series went to Lego Masters on Fox. The Best Broadcast Network or Cable Animated Series or TV Movie went to Rick and Morty. The Best Cable Series Comedy went to What We Do in the Shadows. Best International Series went to Squid Games. Best Animated Short Form Series went to Love, Death, and Robots. Best Streaming Animated Series went to Arcane. Severance picked up Best Supporting Actor for John Turturro and Best Directing for Ben Stiller, as well as a tie for actress with Britt Lower and Laura Linney, and who is on Ozark. And Best Supporting Actress in a Streaming Series went to Sadie Sink for Stranger Things. Best Actor in a Streaming Series went to Lee Jung-jae for Squid Game. And honorary awards were handed out. The Legacy Award went to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and the TV Icon Award went to Giancarlo Esposito. Now that brings us to the end of the news in this edition. Now, please head on over to our social media. We're on Twitter at Multiverse Tom. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as well. And if you'd like to contribute to the show financially, check our show notes. Visit the TeePublic store. We got T-shirts. Head on over to the multiversetonight.com. If you're a subscriber, thank you very much. Be sure to share us with friends, family, loved ones, enemies. If you're brand new to the show, thank you. Please hit that subscribe button as well. And leave some feedback. Let me know how we're doing. I can't change anything unless I know I'm doing something wrong. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to Shane Ivers for the intro music and Lobo Loco for the outro theme music. Thanks for watching this edition of Multiverse Tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more sci-fi and comic book news. Now please exit the universe in an orderly fashion. Good night. Multiverse Tonight is a production of Half Baked Genre Productions. Copyright 2022. All rights reserved. This podcast is a part of the Pop Goes the Culture podcast network. Find out more about our other podcasts at popgoestheculture.com.